Jake wiped his sweat from his brow, glaring at the coconuts. Hey, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is a long-term investment. You'll see this game's going to catch on. People will come from all over the island to play. I think he's going crazy.
Oh, this guy's got a fucking brain-eating disease.
He got a parasite from when he splashed water in his face. Okay. Sophie snorted. People, Jake, we're the only ones here. Silly. You're so silly, Jake. You're so silly, Jake. Anyway, Jake winked at her. For now, oh God. But when we rebuild society, there'll be leagues, coconut bowling leagues. It'll be huge. Sophie shook her head, smiling. All right. I'll give you points for optimism. As the sun began to set, golden glow over the island, they sat side by side watching the waves gently lap at the shore. The air was warm, the island was quiet except for the rustling of palm trees and the occasional call of a distant bird. Jake leaned back, resting his hands. You know, all jokes aside, I kind of like it here. I mean, yeah, we don't have Netflix or burgers or whatever, but there's something peaceful about this place. You're literally on vacation. Anyway. Sophie glanced at him, surprised by the sudden shift in tone. Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing. It's weird.
You're so deep, Jake.
You make me feel not alone, Jake. Never leave me. Oh, yeah, you gonna. Okay.
She's stranded in there.
I'm literally putting myself to sleep. Anyway, I've been thinking the same thing. It's weird, but I don't miss all the noise of the real world. Out here, it's just simple. Oh my God.
Oh my God, Jake.
Sophie smiled softly. Her heart fluttered at his words. Yeah, just you, me, and the coconuts. This is such a bad story. There was a comforting... It's so funny, too, because, if I made a mistake, you guys wouldn't know unless, I told you. So I'm being very transparent right now. There was a comfortable silence between them, and for the first time, Sophie realized just how close they had become. It wasn't just survival anymore, it was something more, something deeper. They were building more than just a camp, they were building a life together. Next, we'll explore how their feelings for each other grow even stronger with a pivotal moment that brings them closer and reveals their love. Anyway, go back to playing Dress to Impress. Come on now. You can't read. Okay, part 4, Love in the Wilderness. Okay, as the day turned into weeks, Jake and Sophie's island routine became second nature. They hunted, foraged, and crafted a semblance of comfortable from the wild surroundings. And although Jake's coconut bowling league never quite took off, the idea of rebuilding a life from scratch together was no longer a joke. It felt real. Sophie found herself watching Jake more than she cared to admit. The man who had once seemed utterly helpless was surprising her at every turn. Sure, he still wasn't the most handy with a spear or a shelter. Sure, he just, wasn't good at anything, but, who else is she gonna look at on a deserted island, besides Jake? So it's, it has to be him. But he made up for it with his humor, his optimism, and the way he found joy in the simplest things. Things she had taken for granted. Aw, Jake. You're Jake. You're literally Jake.
Yeah.
How did ChatGPT literally just read my boyfriend and I's situation so bad? They were just clock it. That's you. You're relating to this? Oh, I wonder why. Because I'm listening to you. Anyway. They were working together to catch a fish by the lagoon. One afternoon, the sky darkened unexpectedly. A heavy wind picked up, rustling the trees, and the first fat... This is such a funny line. And the first fat... Wait, this doesn't make sense. And the first fat raindrop splattered against the sand. I guess that does make sense. I'm just dumb. Anyway... Oh no, Sophie muttered, looking up at the thickening clouds. Looks like we've got a storm coming. This is literally a Disney movie for like 1 to 10 kids, like 10-year-olds. Like, it's so... Why? Why is it so bad? I wanted it to be good so bad. Okay. Because now I'm like invested and I'm not going to go to sleep until we finish it. Why? Okay. Jake glanced at the dark sky. We've handled a little rain before. Jake's gonna die. I can already tell. He's going to pass gently. We've handled it before. It literally, they just like explain doomsday and he's like, a little light rain. Like, what's it gonna do? Anyway, this isn't just a little rain, Sophie said. Her tone was serious. That looks like a tropical rainstorm, maybe worse. We need to get back to the shelter and reinforce it before it hits. Without another word, they both dropped what they were doing and sprinted back to camp. The wind picked up speed behind them. By the time they reached the shelter, the rain was coming down in sheets, and the palm fronds... Anyway... were whipping back and forth wildly. Jake helped Sophie brace the shelter with extra branches, his normally light-hearted demeanor gone as they worked in silence, the howling wind and crashing waves growling louder by the second. Do you think it'll hold? Jake shouted over the noise. Sophie tied off a rope they'd fashioned from vines and gave him a grim look. I hope so, but we need to get inside now. They dove into shelter as a gust of wind tore through the gray. How? Anyway, Jake, you've done more than you think, Sophie said softly, her voice barely a whisper in the storm. I don't know how I would have stayed sane here without you. You make this place feel less lonely. I feel like that's the only thing she can say about him. The intensity of her own words surprised her, but it was true. What had started as an inconvenient survival situation had turned into something more, something she hadn't even realized she needed. Jake gave her a small smile, his eyes searching hers. Oh, God. His eyes searching for hers. Let me look. Okay. It's funny, isn't it? We spend our whole lives chasing things that don't really matter, and then we end up here, and I don't know. It just feels like everything's different. Cause what? They like are saying the most obvious stuff. I am triggered. Sophie nodded, her breath catching in her throat as the storm raged around them. Yeah, it does. For a moment, there was only the sound of the rain, the wind, and their own quiet breathing. And then slowly, almost instinctively, Jake reached out and brushed a strand of wet hair away from Sophie's face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. See, I wish they explained what Jake and Sophie look like, because right